Welcome to First Congregational Church in Guilford, Connecticut, where we are part of a denomination that says no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. Hope wherever you're listening to this reflection this morning that you take some time and roll your shoulders back, open hands and hearts and minds, and give yourself a break. Shake off the week, let go of anything that is hindering you from being at home with yourself or God or one another, and be still. Let us allow the Spirit to come and settle about. Find a cool place to sit or perhaps even walk or listen to this morning's meditation offered by Reverend Riley.
This morning we are continuing with our sermon series on the Beatitudes, and we're coming to a close. So I will be giving you some reflections on the last two Beatitudes that can be found in Matthew chapter 5, verses 10 through 12. But before we get into that, last week I found myself sitting on some rocks next to a fire, next to the Atlantic Ocean. My job was to hand out marshmallows and graham crackers and chocolate squares as folks came down to the rocky seaside to make some s'mores. One of my customers was a boy, maybe 6 years old, who would complain loudly and repeatedly as the smoke from the fire blew in his face. He was a victim of watery eyes and acrid breaths. He wanted someone to shower him with sympathy and to fix all of his problems. I could not do anything about the wind. I could have put the fire out, but that would have ended s'more time, and that was certainly not what he wanted. This child had to decide to change his circumstances. No one could change them for him. So I gently reminded him every time he started to complain that he had the control to move his body. And so he moved to the other side of the fire pit, thus getting his face out of the smoke and giving him the opportunity to absolutely burn a marshmallow for his s'more. This scene came to mind to me this week as I was pondering Jesus's words in Matthew 5. Blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. For the Jewish person under Roman occupation, this is indeed a great comfort. Jews would have been ridiculed, bullied, belittled, and worse for keeping God's commands in a secular society. Worshipping one God, not eating pork or shellfish, honoring the Sabbath are just some of the behaviors that the Roman occupation would have given them derision for. The first audience of the Beatitudes had no power to fight back, to defend themselves, or to move any other place without Rome there to step on their necks. Their whole identity as a people, as the children of Abraham, as God's chosen, relied upon them staying faithful to the ancient laws and persisting under Roman abuse. Jesus can't fix it. He can't fix the cruelty of Rome, but he can validate the experience of his people and bless them in their trials. Some 2,000 years later, it's worth considering a modern interpretation of this passage. Unlike the first audience, we have varying degrees of privilege and power. Unlike the first audience, when I am feeling persecuted, I have several options. I can unfollow, mute, and block vitriolic voices on the internet. I can remove myself from communities that don't see or appreciate me. I can complain about people treating me poorly to my friends and family, so they can offer me support and strategies. I can't control the opinions of others, but I can control my own level of vulnerability, the intensity of my reaction, and the location of my body. This is a privilege that first century Jews did not have. Indeed, it is a privilege that many 21st century peoples of historically marginalized groups continue not to have. We are largely a people for whom, when the smoke of discrimination and injustice blows in our directions, we can simply go somewhere else. What feels like oppression or persecution may in fact be, upon further introspection, simply discomfort from things changing or evolving. Feeling unsafe is not always, but sometimes, feeling unsafe is not always the same as being in danger. These can be opportunities for us to receive challenge of our preconceptions and be brave in admitting that we have more to learn. Perhaps then, as a people with privilege, the blessing that Jesus extends to us is for when we put ourselves in the breach. When we take the smoke full in our faces to block someone else who is caught in the generational curse of racism, poverty, or other discrimination. When we become allies to those who have less privilege than we do. Blessed are you when you are persecuted for doing the hard work of building righteousness for our vulnerable siblings. Blessed are you when you are given side-eye at the office for not laughing at the hateful joke. Blessed are you in your generosity in a world that so values greed. Blessed are you when you are reviled because of the company that you keep. Blessed are you when you make others uncomfortable in your pursuit for justice. In the final beatitude, it sounds like Jesus repeats himself. Verse 10 blesses those who are persecuted because of their righteousness, for doing the right thing. Verses 11 and 12 also bless the persecuted. The why of the persecution changes, though. Jesus says, blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you, and utter all kinds of evil and evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who came before you. Here the blessing is for those who take the gospel seriously, who take the words of Jesus, who is movement building and who is changing the way in which we understand the love of God. This blessing is for those people who take it seriously, who are on the forefront of this movement. They will be called blasphemers, radicals, crazies. There will be violence done against them. Blessed are they who catch the new direction that the Spirit is leading. This persecuted for being on board with God doing a new thing is indeed parallel to the work of the prophets that we read in the Hebrew Scriptures. We read about men and women called to speak God's righteousness to unjust rulers, to rise up against their greed and mistreatment of the poor and the vulnerable. In return for their faithfulness to God's leading and direction, these prophets are chased from town to town. They are hunted, many of them martyred. Speaking truth to power is a dangerous endeavor. Reverend Dr. King, Oscar Romero, Dorothy Day, Harvey Milk, Marsha P. Johnson, anyone who we remember being on the forefront of a movement lived and worked under constant threat. When you are the point of the spear, when you are the tip of the wedge that is forcing a door open, who is breaking a barrier that will now allow change to happen, it is going to hurt. Yes, there are people coming behind, but the first one through the door, the first one to say no, the first one to proclaim that God is doing a new thing, this one will get bruised and bloodied for the cause. Blessed are you, and great is your reward in heaven, because it sure won't feel rewarding on earth. We are not all called to be a prophet like Martin or Harvey or Marsha. We are called to be prophets to the people and places God has put us right now. We are called to the work of the next right thing. The Hebrew Scriptures and the history of movement making would have us believe that only grand gestures are the way that change happens. None of us, likely, are Moses taking on Pharaoh. None of us, likely, are Zelensky taking on Putin. We are called to the small, tiny even, mundane justice work of loving our neighbors. Not because we will be remembered as giants and movement makers, but because we are faithful to God's still speaking voice. The good news of God's liberation and the way that we share that grace with one another is enough. Together we discern the next right thing and refuse to let ugliness and hatred stop us. We do this together because no one can sustain the prophetic work alone. Come back with me now, next to the Atlantic Ocean. The fire is out. All of the sugared and sticky children have gone on their way. It is the earth below, and the sky above, the sound of waves, the salty air, and the smell of beach roses. The stars are incredible. Picture yourself in this peaceful place, and hear again the way in which Christ blesses us. And hear today the blessings that your heart needs. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all evil against you, falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who came before you. Dearly beloved, blessed are you. Amen.
God of grace and God of glory, on thy people pour thy power. thy children's warring madness, bend our pride to thy control. Shame our wanton selfish gladness, rich in things and poor in soul. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage, lest we miss thy kingdom's goal.